Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Helicopter Investor Town Hall. This month, absolutely delighted to have a guest presenter. So I'm going to hand over straight away to Emmanuel Dupuy, co-founder of Aero Asset. Emmanuel, it's over to you.
Thanks, Hal, and thank you for the intro. And let me tell you, it's a real pleasure to be hosting this town hall on behalf of Aero Asset, and I'm sure all of those in attendance. I want to thank you, Louisa, Hannah, and the team for your incredible contribution to the ecosystem. You made the industry more collaborative and enjoyable, and its members better informed and connected. So again, thank you very much. We have some great guests coming up. Spike Whitting from Eagle Copters will talk to us about his latest acquisitions and give his view on the market. Will Fulton from Airbus will discuss demand for new helicopters. Andrew Collins from Sentient Jet and Frank Lazzarini from HeliFlight will give us the latest update on the VIP charter market and their views on the air mobility segment. But first, I would like to introduce William Sturm, undoubtedly one of the best culinary chefs in the helicopter space, an accomplished helicopter salesman and vice president of sales of Aero Asset, to give us the quick view on what's been happening in the pre-owned twin-engine heli markets. William, good morning.
Hey, Emmanuel, how are you doing? Good to see you. How's everything going in Canada?
Everything's going great, and I think you're Pacific time right now, so thanks for getting up so early.
Yeah, no, good to see everybody. Always good to be a part of Heli Investor. Yeah, and looking forward. I've already dusted off my apron and chef's hat for our next Helo Gastro event at HAI in Dallas 2022. So I can't wait to see everybody there. And thinking about the market, if I were to have to pick an opening dish for that meal based on the current twin engine market conditions, I would probably pick gazpacho because it's bright, vibrant, and ripe with opportunities. but in reality, the pre-owned twin engine market has continued on a real positive trend in 2021. Retail sales have improved. They're up 15% compared to the first semester of 2020. And this has been led by the light twins, which have shown nearly a 40% increase in volume year on year, and followed by the mediums that are up 25%. Heavy sales have slumped, but Q1, Q2 sales volume in the VIP segment increased 40% year on year, with the majority of the activity actually coming from North America. But looking at some of our key performance indicators, supply decreased 10% compared to the first semester of 2020. The deal pipeline, and that's what we use to track the number of deals pending at various stages of a transaction, that decreased 35% Q2 versus Q1. However, after 2 consecutive quarters of growth, it's to put that in perspective. If we compare current levels to the same period in 2020, the pipeline is actually up 15%. So the most liquid market year to date was the 109 and 109S, 109SP, followed closely by the 145s. We've seen transactions in 11 of the 13 markets that we track in our quarterly Heli Market Trends Report, the latest of which was published just this week and can be downloaded on our website, aeroasset.com/report, or by clicking the link below. Manuel, you there?
I am. I'm here. Thanks, and no shame in that plug whatsoever. So, what are your projections for the second semester, like the third and fourth quarter of 2021?
I'm bullish for Q3 and Q4 in light of the medium pre-owned twin engine market segments. I think supply for sale will continue to decline in these segments and volume will stay strong. But buyers have started to take a close look at legacy variants such as what's already happening in the 135 and 109 markets. So, older aircraft that are in good condition are now being the only options, and they're getting picked up at a good price. So I think we're going to see that, and it's actually good for us because we've got a lot of listings in that market.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, William, and you take care on the Pacific West Coast.
And I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
And I just want to remind everyone, I think I forgot to say a good morning to everyone. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, to take the famous intro from, now trademarked intro from Al. But please don't be shy to ask your questions. We're monitoring what's coming in, and we'll be happy to relay to our guest. I'm now delighted to introduce Spike Whitting from Eagle Copters. Eagle Copters is a global helicopter service provider headquartered in Canada, offering fleet management support to operators since the year I was born. Great year, 1975. Hi, Spike. How are you?
Good morning, Emmanuel. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. And you just stole my opening line. So for those that don't know, Eagle Copters, indeed, 46 years old, founded in 1975, second generational privately held company. Currently 3 locations. Calgary, as you mentioned, we have a facility in Santiago, Chile, and Coffs Harbour, Australia, which I like to visit when the pandemic allows.
I'm sure you do. And I know you guys are, you're specialized in many different fields, leasing and helicopter sales, customizations, MRO services, with an incredible footprint worldwide, as you just mentioned. So how have your different segments been faring? And how are you seeing activity year to date?
Yeah, thanks. I think we're fortunate and appreciate you having us on. Probably not as well known in this forum because of our importance that we place on the utility market segment. And so happy to report that through a pandemic and through challenging economic times, that sector maintains its balance. And so we've been quite fortunate like that. And I'm happy to report that's the case today as well.
That's great. Have you seen any change in client expectations in the last 12 to 18 months?
Not so much expectations, but just how we conduct our business. Being a global company, we've had to employ different tactics. In the marketing sector, we've had to come up with alternative ways for people to actually receive the helicopters, ship the helicopters. So we've had our share of challenges like that. But as Will had said, we too are optimistic. Activity levels are up. Shop is busy. And so those are really good indicators for us as a company.
One of the areas where I think companies like Eagle and another one would be like Agrarflug Helilift in Germany are particularly useful is you guys are like anticoagulant in the pre-owned utility helicopter markets. You fluidify the market by enabling operators to exit from older aircraft and renew their inventory much more efficiently. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I think Eagle Copters recently made a bulk helicopter purchase from a major operator. Can you tell us more on that acquisition?
Yeah, sure. We do look for opportunities like that, and we label ourselves tier 2 lessors. And what that means is exactly what you described. Different parts of the world, different markets. So yeah, we were involved in a large acquisition for us. It was 17 helicopters and 9,000 light items of inventory, because support is really what we're known for, globally with our leases. So a mix, 407s, S76, C++, which we're also known for repurposing helicopters and getting them into what we call their second life cycles. And a couple of new D models. Talk about a shameless plug, Emmanuel. So yeah, we're quite active. We're fortunate to have the capital to be able to do that, and then onward disposition for them. It creates opportunities in our market for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that companies like and very useful that companies like Eagle exist, because case in point, the D models that you bought were oil and gas aircraft. They had basically delivery time and still have delivery time yet they were 70-year-old airframe, if my memory is correct. And you are now looking to repurpose and either sell or lease, or you're really, helping to find a home for these aircraft. And whereas they had been sitting for so long. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you, but it's important to know we have excellent relationships with the OEMs. We've demonstrated our ability to do that with a couple of products, the Eagle Single, the Eagle 407 HP, where we re-engined the 407. So Airbus, they put completions in. Leonardo's been great, and Sikorsky, because without those in today's regulatory environment, it's difficult to do that. More difficult for those of us that have been in the industry a long time. It was never like this from a regulatory point of view in reconfiguring anything. So it's quite important to develop and maintain the OEM relationships.
Yes. So can you give us the short and long view, let's say, 12 months and beyond, on what demand for Eagle Copter services and aircraft will look like?
Yeah, 12 months is good. As a significant MRO facility, a lot of our projects are 3 to 4 months in duration normally. So I'm happy to say, 12 months, we're already loaded for the 12 months, which is really good from a capacity point of view. And after that, we're very optimistic. We are seeing a lot of return to service from idle assets. That's some of our activity. Sales, as everybody's mentioned, has been really good despite everything. And, it's probably too late to mention the political environment, but that impacts us all, and that's more or less behind us. So, all systems are go right now, both 12 months and further.
That's great. Are you seeing? What part of the world are you out of the areas that you are located? Which areas are most dynamic right now?
I would say South America is pretty dynamic for us right now. We have a slightly different business model there. We're the independent rep for a couple of helicopter companies. So to see that activity pick up is good. And that's almost speaks outside of the utility market segment. Years ago, discretionary money was how a lot of our assets got deployed. And when that went out of favor, we felt that. So that's coming back, believe it or not, in our opinion. So South America is really good. And North America, we've actually seen some startups in exploration again, which is another indicator to us, that's one of the first segments that gets shelved. So just to hear that a couple of people are starting that up is encouraging, definitely.
That's great. Well, Spike, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to see you soon.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Will Fulton. Will Fulton is head of marketing at Airbus Helicopters North America. Will, how are you?
I'm doing great, Emmanuel. Thanks for having us today. Appreciate it.
Great to see you. Let's delve right in. I got so many questions for you, and really interested to get your feedback on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing the highest level of inquiries for new helicopters. Where do you rate the level of interest today?
Enthusiastically, it's higher than we expected. So maybe a comparison between last year and this year, and that's how I'll kind of answer these questions. We predicted a little bit more of a shallow recovery that would go into 2026, potentially. And I think what we're seeing in pockets, especially in North America, and maybe the Americas as a total, is a much higher interest rate, right, and inquiry rate that we thought would probably be more around a 3, and now we're seeing it's more around a 4. And in some segments, it's ramping quickly to a 5. It's driven a lot by new helicopter fleet replacement with large operators, is really what we're seeing. But I would say globally, it's probably going more optimistically as well. What we thought would be on a scale 1 to 5, 2 is probably more of a 3. And it's definitely tied to how comfortable businesses are getting back to the quote unquote norm, face to face. As we know, aviation is, and especially helicopters, is very relationship driven from a purchase activity standpoint. So I think you see a strong correlation there.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the VIP segment is starting to get a lot of buoyancy right now, and certainly in the fixed wing, pre-owned markets are on fire in the U.S. The U.S. buyers are for pre-owned fixed wing aircraft or business jets are having to go international to buy aircraft, and where there was some reticence not so long ago. I mean, maybe a year ago, and to do that, and buyers always favored the U.S.-based aircraft, but now we're really seeing that market to pick up, and I can only imagine that demand for VIP helicopters, particularly from U.S. buyers, is well. Actually, I know for a fact it's increasing because that's what we reported in our Q2 heli market trends. But I can only imagine that we're going to start seeing increased demand for new VIP helicopters. And so, what sectors are you seeing the most interest from right now?
Yeah, let's talk about the PBA VIP market, right? First, that's definitely in our top 3. Interestingly enough, Airbus is offering on the PBA market is called Airbus Corporate Helicopters, and so we offer everything from very highly customized bespoke solutions all the way up to pre-planned interiors across the line. And the interesting part, even last year, is that this market sustained itself, and actually the inquiries grew. And it was probably driven a lot by autonomy, travel autonomy, and being able to go where those corporations and private individuals wanted to go when they wanted to get there. And that became a lot tougher last year. But it's also being driven now, this year, I would say by, from an Airbus perspective, new entrants into the market. We have some exciting products, a 5-bladed H145 that's referred to as the D3 that has achieved full FAA certification. And where we once were selling across our operating plan as predicted, we're actually seeing that we're selling into more of a backlog with some of these advanced airframes, especially in that VIP market. I would say the first one that we're seeing, though, from a aircraft replacement standpoint first, and then a platform capability increase is the airborne law enforcement market. Last year, a lot of those budgets were strained because budgets were reallocated towards obvious other necessities. Now, in 2021, we see them coming back. They're not canceling those inquiries. They're actually level setting, and we're seeing more bookings and orders happening earlier in the year than normal, which is exciting for us. And then I would say the other big segment is our air medical segment, right? Our helicopter EMS segment. As most people know, especially in North America, there's a couple of very large players, right? And as those aircraft age, we're looking for enhanced capacity and growth with those fleet replacement strategies with each one of those groups. And that is heavily picking up as well. And I think it's important to realize that it's not just replacement growth. We are actually seeing market growth with the opening of new helicopter bases beyond what they were pre-COVID levels. So those 3, and they kind of rotate around, are private and business aviation, airborne law enforcement, and helicopter EMS. And as Spike mentioned, not to discount, utility or other segments, those are actually picking up as well. And we're seeing a lot of strong interest in enhanced capabilities inside for current use and production airframes, like the pending H-125 power increase that's going to come up.
Well, you have such incredible products and that are so well adapted to every segments and configuration to every application, and it just so your positioning in the market is very interesting in that sense, and it must make you very, as an OEM, I mean, it must make you very comfortable to have such a wide spread in the market and being able to cater to very specifically to each segment of the market. But also, I think the risk there is that it makes you complacent. I mean, are you looking to develop some new products in the very near term, or can we expect some announcements from Airbus Helicopters?
Well, I think your question is very timely. I mean, if you go all the way to Airbus group level, our chairman and CEO Guillaume just mentioned we can't be complacent. We have to be a thought leader. We have to be able to wade into those waters of, potentially let's go see what's out there, and don't worry so much about it's a not made here mentality. Let's go find the right technologies that can integrate with our product lines. To be more specific, I would say, Airbus's philosophy is we've been learning a lot through our technology demonstrators, right? So a lot of the press that people have seen is City Airbus, Vahana, things of that nature. And we're learning, and those are technology demonstrators. It's unlikely that those aircraft will be built as a product. What Airbus likes to do, and one of the things I love about our company, is that we take our current product lines and we start integrating those technologies that we've learned about into them to make them better. So those are the type of announcements I feel like we'll see from Airbus. I think there's some exciting things on the precipice that I don't want to steal anyone's thunder from at group level. But Airbus maintains a very innovative look, and complacency is something that we need to fight against. Because in order to grow these markets, I think what you have to do is, I refer to two types of technological advances, right? There's leap elephant and there's leapfrog. Leap elephant is just this big, massive thing, big, grandiose idea that really inspires us, right? And it's inspired us for a long time, especially around stuff like air mobility. But I think in order to get cultures and societies and regulators to go along with you on that trip, I think you actually have to make appropriate leapfrog advancements and treat those groups like a customer who advises in those advancements, so that you're implementing at a pace that culturally the world can buy into. And so I think Airbus is doing a good job of that. I don't have any, awe-inspiring announcements to make right now. I'll leave those to our presidents and CEOs. But I expect there's going to be some very interesting pieces coming in. But also, I would say, let's look at the announcements, but let's look at the execution of those announcements too. And like I've mentioned, this year, 5-bladed 145D3, that increases, useful load capabilities by 300 plus pounds. It's incredible with DMCs going down. The H-125 power is going to be an absolute beast in the utility market. And we're partnering with groups like, you may have heard of, like BLR, who enhance the airframe to even further build on those capabilities. And then of course we have brand new clean sheet designs like the H-160 coming down the pipeline that have been very attractive to the VIP, PBA market and our Airbus Corporate Helicopters customers. But now we're seeing a lot more interest from helicopter EMS and larger law enforcement agencies. So I don't think I answered directly, but that's kind of a general statement around that.
No, you did, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot by any means, and appreciate your candor. And I'll want to get to on the innovation. You mentioned innovation, and I want to get to that in a moment, and particularly eVTOL and air urban mobility market segment. But before we go there, obviously, I just want to say I'm very excited about Airbus looking to sell a lot of EMS and VIP aircraft in the near term. It means that there'll probably be some pre-owned machines entering the market, and as a pre-owned sales guy, obviously that's very good for us. And one of the things that I found was exceptional this pandemic or crisis versus, for example, the 2008 financial crisis, is that the OEMs, I mean Airbus, but not only Airbus helicopters, has done an incredible job at keeping lead times very level. And so how are the lead times for new helicopters compared to pre-pandemic?
Well, I think that answer is a little bit of a combination of like an old economic supply and demand curve, right? A little bit. I think during the COVID environment, it caused across the aerospace industry, supply chains to react differently. And it's not a light switch, right? So when you're turning that back on, which we've been doing, since, at least the last 6 months, that's a process. That's a process of turning it back on, because you don't want to just hit the light switch and go. What you want to do is you want to turn all that supply chain back on, but you want to maintain the quality assurances that you had and your customers expect. And so I believe Airbus is doing a good job of turning those back on, but it has, because of higher demand and looking at what the industry was predicting for during the COVID environment, it has pushed us into a backlog situation. So really, how do we keep our operators operating and our customers purchasing airframes and keep them excited about it? And I think one of the things that we're going to be doing for the rest of this year is a very large investment in showing people the aircraft where they fly the aircraft. So we're going to be doing an H145D3 demo tour, H160 clinical mock-ups, demo tours, and getting people's hands on the aircraft again and getting their feedback so that we can continue to innovate along with them. And so is it exactly back to pre-COVID levels? I would say no, from a supply chain standpoint, but we're working to get there. But we want to do it in a measured and appropriate way that maintains the quality and performance that our customers expect.
That's great. All right, well, we have some questions coming in, so let me relay some of these. Mike Stone is asking whether you're seeing increased demand in the wind generation sector, wind farm.
Yeah, the wind generation market is definitely burgeoning again in maybe for the first time in North America, especially with the current administration that we have in the U.S. You're seeing a lot of discussion around the Eastern Seaboard and a lot of interest happening with traditional oil and gas offshore operators like Bristow and PHI. So, but I think there's also a transference from the European groups that have been doing a lot of offshore wind farm work for quite a while. So we're continuing to learn more and more about those segments. And it almost seems like it's going to be a blend of a utility / oil and gas offshore operator that can do this role really well with helicopters. But we all have to remember that from an offshore standpoint, it's a little bit different business model, right? In the days of higher oil prices, when you are doing crew changes out at rigs, you're really a charter transportation service to rotate those crews. This is a lot about building and maintaining the wind farm. So I still think we're looking to understand how that fits in some of the economic models of the operators, but we find it very interesting.
Yuvan, who I believe is part of the yacht investor team, is pointing that there's been record sales in the yacht space, and asking whether you're seeing an increased demand from yacht owners to maybe put some H145 five-bladed on helidecks.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, we get correspondence every day. Hey, I would love to upgrade my aircraft. When can I do it? And from an Airbus corporate helicopter standpoint and yachting aviation, it's a topic that we've sunk a lot of effort into the relationships, not just with the owners and principals and their crews, but with the yacht builders themselves, like Fedship, and those type of builders, to say, you know, if you want this type of capability, here's how you build it in. And our teams have been integrating with that, both in Europe and in the US. As a matter of fact, one of my team members is a previous ship captain, and he often presents on behalf of yachting aviation. His name's Mark Hennis, and he's done a great job and continues to do so. But like I said earlier, it's still a relationship business. So we need to make sure the relationships are across the board. But the market is there. And more people with that type of access, monetary access to yachts, definitely want transportation on and off those yachts. And we're also seeing a lot of the yacht builders actually build a secondary ship just to put their additional equipment. And that could include a helicopter as well.
I mean, I would also like to upgrade my yacht, but I'm still at the sort of dinghy level in the swimming pool, unfortunately. We saw recent consolidation and major order announcements in the eVTOL market, and I'll just merge. We got a couple of questions on urban air mobility from Wyatt Hawkins and Charles Reese, and I'll just merge these into this question. We saw consolidation and order announcements from players like Joby and Embraer's Eve. How are you currently engaged in the how is Airbus Helicopters currently engaged in the advanced air mobility market?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. We have been an investor in urban air mobility for a while. Just happens to be with current airframes, right? It may not be eVTOL. And so we look for those companies that we can provide investment and resources for. But I think that, moving forward, as SPACs, SPACs occur for public offerings, I look at it and I say, well, let's determine what is actionable. And I think that's what Airbus does too. And we refer to that as technology readiness levels. So really what Airbus would like to see is a higher technology readiness level that's appropriate for investment from a company of our size, let's say, right? But I have to applaud what, companies like Joby Aviation are doing, and Blade are doing. And they're looking to kind of diversify and hedge a little bit in the eVTOL market and just say, we're not exactly sure what the production line aircraft is going to be in the future, but there's a lot of interesting solutions. And I think Airbus wants to be a thought leader and a partner in that. But the other big piece about eVTOL is I think we focus on the product, right? We focus on the flying product. And eVTOL, to me, in UAM, it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem that, everyone wants to work on the product. Now, how many people want to join me in working on the infrastructure development? And how many people want, and we have some really good applications. So I think we have to preserve some of the airport infrastructures and things of that nature that we can then couple with advanced application, advanced low-level flight capabilities and infrastructures to employ these products and across continents, right? So Airbus's position is we're looking for strong partners, and we're also looking for technology that will integrate into, a couple of our key pieces that we've already, stated are our goals, like aircraft sustainability, lower carbon emissions, electrification. But as you start to look at this, I also believe, and this is not something I made up, I think many of us have heard of it, is more of a democratization of flight. Flying today for a pilot takes a lot of effort, time, money, professionalism, all those things. And not everyone has that. So if you're going to make it more accessible, I think we have to make flight, generally speaking, more like a driver's license and less like a pilot's license. And with technology, I think we can get there. Airbus has a strong stance on the advancement of urban air mobility, especially with our teams in Europe. And we're excited to see how this continues to emerge. But like I said, we have to bring society, culture, regulatory authority along on the ride. If the jumps in technology are too far, leap elephant jumps, or too big, they often get dismissed, even if there's a lot of investment behind them. If you can make those smaller bites and leapfrog the technology and bring those groups along with you, I think it's a much more successful model. And I think that's where Airbus wants to be.
Sorry and please excuse my innocence, but will we see Airbus helicopter eVTOL aircraft certified in the next 5 years?
I think putting a timeline around it is difficult right now, because something that we want to invest in, maybe it's an Airbus specific aircraft, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's someone else's airframe that we're a silent partner with, or something of that nature. I think as we're looking at over the next decade, I do think we will see more and more commitment to eVTOL and electrification. Those projects are currently ongoing inside the company. But I think we're also waiting for an impactful time to make that statement. And that statement needs to be about the entire ecosystem, not just the product.
Yeah. Charles Reese is asking, is Airbus Helicopters looking at the unmanned air mobility space, or actually specifically the drones?
Yeah, I think, drones, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. Of course, we're looking at what unmanned or drone spaces can do as more of a complement to what we're employing now with manned helicopters. How do you get those two things to operate inside the same space simultaneously? It's actually a lot more difficult than you would think. A lot of, I would say, SUAS, small UAS operators who are doing deliveries are having to go to Africa and work with different countries there to show proofs of concept. Just because of airworthiness authority there falls underneath a different regime. And the need might be higher to transport medical supplies. But I can tell you that, yes, Airbus is definitely looking at how we appropriately integrate those pieces. And I would say in a lot of cases inside of North America, and with the other OEMs that operate in North America, that question tends to fall both in the commercial and the military space. And so you see a lot of joint R&D that way. So you may see manned versus optionally manned versus completely unmanned. But I think, it's kind of like that picture of cars and horses and buggies in 1920 or earlier New York City crossing by each other, right? There's going to be a point on the road where we're going to have to cross by each other and operate in the same space. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
Great. Well, that's a great segue to transition to the next panel. Will Fulton, really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for giving us all these insights.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Take care.
So I'm now very pleased to introduce Andrew Collins and Frank Lazzarini. Andrew Collins is CEO of Sentinjet, a charter procurement business who created the industry's first private jet card. Sentient Jet is part of the Directional Aviation family. And Frank Lazzarini is COO of HeliFlight. HeliFlight is a VIP helicopter commercial operator management company and heli card provider. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
Great to see you. So let me start with Frank. Has the VIP ops segment bounced back, and where is it at versus pre-pandemic?
Hey, good morning again. So VIP segment for the Northeast has definitely bounced back. We can see that in charter demand. We're experiencing now about 90% of what we were seeing in 2019. And we also see that in aircraft sales when it comes to helping our clients manage their helicopter. So we definitely saw an uptick in purchase at the end of 2020, partly because of the advantageous fiscal policy. But the interest remains high this year. In our experience, though, this is true for modern state-of-the-art equipment in two types. I don't think this will come as a surprise. The AW139 for the kind of the standard VIP corporate mission, and the H145 for the VIP and the yacht mission. Now, when I say this, keep in mind, we only operate in the twin engine aircraft, so twin engine aircraft category. So I don't really have the pulse for the single engine market, but we're definitely pleased with the way things are coming back, and this bodes well for next year.
That's great. Andrew, can you give us some insight on your business model, how it differs from other directional aviation brands, and how your activity is going?
Sure. Do you want it from the Sentient perspective or the vertical lift perspective?
Let's start with the Sentient perspective.
Great. Okay. So as you mentioned, we invented the Jet Card many years ago, and we have 8,000 card holders. It's a very robust market right now. So if you're in the space in the U.S., whether you're an on-demand provider or you're a card provider right now, it is definitely seeing an aggressive amount of demand. For us, we differentiate in that we specialize solely in jet cards. We do not do charter one-offs. We do not fractionalize aircraft. We do not help people purchase aircraft. Our small ecosystem, on the kind of infrastructure side is really our operator partners and our core company, OneSky, and some of the core fleet there, and then our client base. So we offer a 10-hour response time on standard travel days, and then it goes from there on peak days. Really, what's differentiated us in the space is we really invested in both kind of the safety aspect of our model, as well as unifying what is an asset-light model, right? The infrastructure, the framework, and the technologies that were required to be able to put 100, 150 aircraft in the air every day. And inherently, you have to make sure that you're scheduling very clean lines of flying in order to have a profitable business, but you also have to satisfy your customer need. So that would be the last piece I would just say that differentiates us in what we do, right? We have wonderful sister companies. On the fractional side, it's FlexJet. On the on-demand side, it's the FX Airs of the world or the private flies of the world over in Europe. All we do every day is live up to the commitment that we've made to the consumer about being a more thoughtful way to fly. And I think it's the service layer, the safety layer, and ultimately the attributes and flexibility of the product that have really kind of driven the differentiation and allowed us to lead the market in the space.
I mean, Sentient Jet and HeliFlight are, arguably some of the most powerful brands in their respective spaces. I mean, HeliFlight brand was immortalized in the series Billions, which about the life of a private equity billionaire who I'm sure is a very well represented stereotype in both your clientele. Question to both of you: How have you had to adapt the user experience compared to pre-pandemic?
I'll go first if I may. We've had to make some changes. This has been, the entire industry we've seen make certain changes. If it's products to sanitize the aircraft, the crew, vaccines, masks, all of that, right? So we've had to adapt to what was going on. I think, though, our clientele hasn't changed. So the lives of some of our clients have changed, and this may have been accelerated by COVID. But one of the changes that we've noticed is this the preeminence of South Florida now in people's lives, the kind of people that are our clients, and we think that this is here to stay. We've had a presence in South Florida for about 15 years, but with our clients spending a lot more time down there now, and the infrastructure landscape changing and improving, we think that Florida is really going to be a staple. Up until today, you could get almost anywhere in Florida with an airplane. There's an airport every 15 miles. Everybody knows that. And the Miami area has been problematic for helicopters, but it appears that infrastructure changing. Certainly, the society and politics are more accepting of helicopters down there, and there's a whole push you might have heard on the eVTOL down there. So we think that Florida is going to be a great market for us, and we look forward to really taking advantage of that.
I'd agree with Frank in the sense that you had to step out and figure out how you were going to work with your clients. I think for us, what we really recognized early, and in fact, I remember being on a town hall in the spring of last year and kind of equating private aviation to being a utility, and really taking away kind of the luxury aspect of the business for a moment. And I would tell you that what we had to really adapt to last year was a lot of actual new entrants, people that were familiar with private aviation but never had a formal solution. So they wanted to know, everything from our safety rigor all the way through to the health protocols that we had in place. And fortunately, given the investments we've made over the years, we were ready for the pandemic, and we accentuated that and had to lift that, kind of information forward to the folks that were coming in. But I think there was a spate of time for about 3 or 4 months where almost every day I was talking to somebody who was being referred into the business, where they had somebody that was immunocompromised, they had somebody that needed to be to Frank's point in Southern Florida on short notice or what have you. We were one of the few solutions out there that someone could feel comfortable, because people were looking to avoid the touch points and the exposure points and crowds at that point. And so I would tell you, everything from the end user experience all the way to the way we spoke to the market was really about that avoidance of crowds, the safety measures, and the elements of getting you to reconnect with folks. And so lastly, I would just say that we saw it in our numbers. For most of the year last year, we saw our numbers invert, where normally in a given month, 60-70% of our cards that come in are returning users, right? And the others are new entrants. It flipped, and it was nearly 60 to 80% at times with new entrants or new customers for us. So I think we opened up a wider addressable market, or saw the addressable market open up more. And that was, compelling and interesting, for obvious reasons in the business, but more so it was because we spoke to the market a particular way, and I think serviced the customer a certain way.
Thanks for that. And we have about 10 minutes left. I want to transition to the urban air mobility topic. Andrew, Directional Aviation recently announced the acquisition of AAG and Halo, which subsequently became launch partner of Embraer's Eve in the UAM market,
right,
with an order of 200 eVTOL aircraft. Can you explain the vision that fueled these announcements?
Sure. So I think the first thing I would say is, OneSky itself, amongst FlexJet, amongst the Sentient Jets of the world, and amongst, the FX Airs of the world, we probably have, I don't know, somewhere around 12,000 contracted customers, or 15,000, depending on how you would look at it or cut it. And those folks, always told us that last mile of their journey, was one that they'd love to see us address. So I think what we have is a built-in user base for vertical lift. And so it was almost an automatic. I noticed that Airbus was saying how they've been in the space for a long time, but using existing airframes. It's the same thing here. We had the demand, we had the need, the voice of the customer spoke to us. So we purchased, AAG in the winter, and then most recently Halo in the UK. And really the vision is this, the first step is to just service our customers, right? And the model is really around making sure that we've really unified around a particular model or brand on each side of the pond. So in the Northeast, it really is the Sikorsky S-76s. We just actually added a D model the other day. And in the UK, it's the Leonardo 109s, the 169s, and giving us scale, giving us the benefits of consistency and quality in the VIP market. But more so, really, it's also about gaining that operational expertise in the vertical lift market, because we see the eVTOL space coming. The order with Eve was really our commitment to that, and we selected Eve. They're great folks. It's maybe some obvious statements, but if you walk through it, Embraer, the lineage there, the certification of aircraft over the years, being able to get there, the global product infrastructure, services infrastructure, ultimately also their belief in being a manufacturer as opposed to an operator. Our vision is really about being an operator. So I think that also propitiously aligns. And then, at the end of the day, they've also invested in air traffic management for the eVTOL space and have been working on this for a while. And they've actually done a lot of work in London, for instance, in this space. So I think that anybody that tells you they have a perfect eVTOL model right now in the future, I don't know how true that is. I do think we see the shoots of where, revenues, where consumers will play in the space, and we're investing towards it. We're a progressive company. That's what we do. And so I think it's going to unlock, some obvious revenues and flexibility and possibilities with the consumer. And then I think it's yet to come as to what that'll mean.
Frank, HeliFlight was a very natural competitor of AAG, or presumably still is, in fact, as AAG is still in the helicopter business, but part of directional aviation. I remember you guys were Uber Elevate partners, and that got acquired by Joby. Does HeliFlight have views on collaborating with Joby to become an eVTOL player?
So first of all, let me say on the VTOL without the E, first mile, last mile for us it's our bread and butter, right? And we've had a partnership with Sentient that goes back, probably 15 years on that. And then of course, we are not married to any one particular provider, so we work on that with everybody, all the biggest players and the smaller ones. And that's a very good revenue source for us, particularly in the New York market and somewhat in the Chicago market as well. When it comes to eVTOLs, look, the space is literally buzzing. Innovation's coming fast, the regulatory space and the public acceptance appear to be keeping up. So this is very, very exciting for us. We think that the concept was accelerated greatly by the Elevate team. Like you mentioned, we were a partner of theirs since 2018. And hats off to the guys at Elevate. They did an incredible job. With them, we proved the route, which is probably going to be the most valuable route, which is the west side of Manhattan to Kennedy Airport. Once this will be once kind of the reality and technology catches up with the dream. Like you mentioned, Elevate has now moved to Joby, and we expect to continue working with them very closely as their aircraft is certified. And for the future, we expect a mixed fleet, right? So there will be traditional helicopter dedicated to certain trips, and then eVTOLs dedicated, both to the kind of the mass transport idea that Elevate brought forward, and to as well as private transportation for certain trips that are in the most noise sensitive areas. We deal here with not only New York City, of course, but the East End on Long Island. Noise is a real problem. Miami as well. So this is what we envision: a mixed fleet. Certainly the eVTOL capabilities in the beginning are going to be, you may not be able to do an 800-mile flight, right? So you need a helicopter for that. But certain trips for certain very specific areas, off-sites, private residences, an eVTOL would be, a great improvement when it comes to, neighborly flying and being sensitive to the needs of others when you're flying to your house or to certain airports.
Andrew, it sounds like we've united you today with with Helifight, who's going to be competing against some Embraer Eve aircraft in the eVTOL segment in the Northeast.
Sure. At the end of the day, that it's going to be a healthy competition for sure, and I appreciate our competitors and our fellow brethren that are out there, especially in that market. I think the Manhattan Hamptons market, it's a small world, so everybody knows each other. I would just say this to kind of sum out, which is we're creating a global platform in the space, and the first step really was coming into Manhattan, but then it's also expanding into London, and we'll be making other announcements as well along the way. But I'm looking forward to what the future holds, and I really think there's a lot going on in the vertical lift space that's exciting.
Great. And Frank, are you is Helifight looking to make some acquisitions abroad or some partnerships abroad?
There's a few things in the works. I'm not at liberty to say, but there's definitely, like I said, you heard some of the names, and some others are in the news every day or every other day. So we're working with a number of partners, and I think you'll see stuff hitting the news soon.
Okay. Is Asia on either of your radar, Andrew and Frank?
Radar, yes, not necessarily any activity at the moment.
I can't say the same.
All right. Last question, unless some of the audience want to put some questions forward. Just to conclude, can you give us the short view, the long view, 12 months and beyond, in terms of what demand for VIP charter? We can talk, Andrew, we can talk fixed and rotary. What demand for VIP charter and management services, as well as aircraft types, will look like.
So I would say on the fixed side, demand is going to stay fairly persistent, right? So right now you're still seeing mostly personal travel. And I think that the post-vaccination boom that's happening relative to fixed wing is going to continue. It might taper off when kids go back in school and we hit the fall somewhat, but I think that's going to be replaced and even augmented by business travel. I think most folks thought business travel was coming back in 22. I think if I look at the tea leaves and I look at our trends and forward booking, it tells me that, kind of post Labor Day, we're going to see that really accentuate and grow. In terms of rotorcraft, in terms of the markets, it's great hearing Frank is 90% back. I think that we're probably closer to maybe 75 to 80%. And a lot of, the weather, for instance, this summer has just been really odd in the Northeast and has impacted revenue hours. Additionally, vertical lift in that kind of a market is also very seasonal, but the difference might be that the Hamptons became a year-round destination, for example. once the pandemic set in, and we'll see how long that sticks. But I think we've got some plans relative to, you know, trying to keep demand and capacity kind of humming along the way here, especially given the work we want to do on some products and such. But I'm bullish on both. I think the fixed wing is kind of jumping ahead, and I think you're starting to see fixed wing actually increase in Europe as well at the moment. Western Europe, not so much, but it's coming back pretty aggressively too there. So we probably have a good solid 12 months of, you know, demand generation and capacity usage about to occur in both kind of sectors.
I would have to agree. I mean, you, Andrew, said a lot of the things that I had on my mind. I mean, look, the Northeast helicopter world is very much a seasonal one, and we kind of missed the very beginning of the busy summer season because of COVID, and then there was a weather impact both in June and in July. You know, however, you know, I see the second half of the summer, like I mentioned before, back at about 90% of 19, and that's against the backdrop where some of the competitors, it's not just us and AEG up here, but there's a kind of bunch of other smaller and lower tier operators. Well, many of them really pared back capacity, and they're struggling at bringing it back online. Right, so supply is constrained.
Right.
In the longer term, you know, 2022 and beyond, you know, I think we're going to rejoin that curve, the growth curve that we had been on for the past, you know, 4, 5, 6 years, which sees, you know, high single digit to low double digit year-over-year growth in flight hours and the corresponding revenues. So, you know, who would have thought, right? It looked like the world was going to end, and it was just maybe just, you know, fell asleep for 5 minutes, and then it seems to be back. And I think the future is bright. There are some risks, there are some headwinds. We kind of talked about that, but we were very bullish.
All right. Well, thanks very much, gentlemen, for your insights. Andrew Collins, Frank Lazzarini, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
And thanks everyone for attending. Really appreciate to see everyone today on this town hall. Thanks to Heli Investor for making it happen, and to once again echo the great words of Al. Wish everyone a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you.